What's good, guys? It's Sam here, and I wanted to talk about another week down of YouTube and growing my channel, getting to $100 a day online. So I'm going to show you the results in terms of how many minutes, the views, subscribers, all the analytics on YouTube, as well as how much content I'm publishing. So you get to see some of that and the traffic sources. Just giving you as much information as I can. If you decide you would like to do something like this or make money online, you have all the information and you know how much work is involved during the process. When I started YouTube, it would have been nice to have somebody to watch. But anyways, before I get into all that, just gently tap that red button that says subscribe and that little bell notification. That little bell notification is YouTube, and that tells you every time I post a video, which is kind of like a gift. Every day I'm giving you a gift in your pocket when you pull my phone out and you see that I posted a video and you swipe to get rid of it because you don't want to watch it. Okay, now with that being said, let's get into it. I put together a spreadsheet to track my progress in terms of getting to $100 a day online. I figure that I need about 1 million minutes watched per month, and that comes out to be about 250,000 a week. So I'm tracking my results on a weekly basis. The week ends on Saturday, so that is what I'm tracking. And the number of minutes watched is more important than the total number of views, because if I can garner more minutes, that also is what YouTube puts down for the as the most important factor. Like when you pull up YouTube analytics, you can't just click on views. It's watch time and a bunch of other things. There's not even a tab to click on for views. That's how important it is for YouTube to increase the total number of minutes watched, not the total number of views. And that makes sense, right? If I can put out quality content where people watch 98% of it and somebody else puts out content with a very clickbaity title and thumbnail that's not necessarily representative of what is in there, they might get a lot of views, but maybe people only watch 3% of it, where people watch 74% of mine. So the quality of the minutes watched, is where YouTube is going, and that's where they've been going for the last couple of years. Now, with that being said, I went through and I modeled it out. So starting at the end of October in 2018, so basically the beginning of November, for me to get to 1 million minutes by the end of March 2020, which is about 72 weeks, I need to grow at an average of about 7.85% per week. So if you know anything about math or data in terms of compounding, if you get an 8% return on your investments year over year, then you're going to have something in the neighborhood of your investments doubling every 9 years. Now, if you have that on a quarterly basis, you have some really crazy growth. 8% per quarter growth, that's crazy. Even if you had a monthly growth of 8%, that's amazing. But to do it on a weekly basis, that's what I have down, right? That's what I need to hit on a weekly basis. So keep that in mind, right? 7.85% weekly growth in terms of minutes watched to get to 250,000 minutes watched by the end of March 2020, right? At that point, I should be able to get about $2,000 from YouTube's ad revenue, and then I can figure out another way to get another $1,000 to get to $100 a day online. So with that being said, some of the other stuff that I'm doing in terms of the volume of content I'm putting out will make a lot more sense when you keep that in as a reference point. Like you need to grow at about 8% week over week. So putting out that tremendous amount of content. Now, with that being said, I'm going to get into the spreadsheet that I created. Okay, so what we've got here, right, is the 250,000 minutes watched by the end, per week by the end of March 2020. So this is roughly where I was starting out prior to starting, I had about 950 minutes watched over the previous 7 days. Then this is the target, right? An 8% growth brings me to 1,025. This is what I actually hit. Then I needed to hit another 8% growth. This is what I actually hit. So these are the actual numbers right here. And as you can see, it's been just tremendously amazing. And then last week and this week that just ended, I've seen a tremendous drop in terms of the growth. And I believe that has been two things. I almost wanted to test it out. So I continue to put out a large volume of content, but I stopped marketing it as much from the external sources. And if you look at the actual data, right? So the last quarter of 2018, I had about 13% of the total traffic came from external sources. First quarter of 2018, so yes, it's only today's the 13th, even though this data is actually of the 11th or the 10th, I believe, just because it's always lagged by a little bit. The amount of external traffic as a percentage of the total number of minutes watched is 6.9%. So roughly cutting that in half, you know what I mean, the external amount of traffic. And that was with a lot less marketing through social platforms, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Medium, Tumblr, and any type of, and Instagram, and any other type of direct to somebody that I would be sending a link to. So I wanted to see, and the amount of YouTube search went up from last quarter of about 60% of total minutes watched versus this quarter so far, 10 days into this quarter, and it's up at 64%. However, the growth rate slowed down tremendously. So this week, today's Sunday, the 13th, this week I am actually stepping back onto that in terms of the volume of marketing I'm doing per video, and I'm going to see how that changes this coming weekend. So if you want to stay tuned for that, make sure you're subscribed, because excuse me, I'll give you the results of marketing at least 1 to 2, 3, 4 videos per day on different social platforms to drive more traffic in, and see how this data changes between Sunday today and the end of Saturday a week away, to let you know how this growth rate changes. Now, getting back into the actual numbers here, as you can see, for most of this time period, I had a tremendous growth rate. You know what I mean? 30%. I had 50% the last week of the year. That's just tremendous. Like going from 9,000 to 14,000. This is, I think, the best week I'd ever had at one point, and then this week was the best I ever had, and then this one that just ended was the best I've ever had. However, I grew from 16.7 to 18,000. That's only a 7% growth rate, 7.5% growth rate. I need to hit 7.85%. So I got to stop fucking around and get my shit together, both in terms of, I believe, putting out a greater volume of content, but also, and we'll see this coming week, the marketing in terms of the effect of that. And I think the marketing is going to help from two standpoints, right? You're just going to get in front of more people, which is good. What's actually going to help on three main areas that I can think of. You're going to get in front of just more people in general, right? The targeting, if you've watched other videos, if on the growing the YouTube channel, check out the channel if you haven't. I have a whole playlist on it. But the targeting I get from marketing, and I'm not spending any money on this, I'm just literally just doing this through these platforms in terms of interacting with people and whatnot. The average amount of time somebody watches a video when they click through some of my marketing is generally around 50% longer than it is if it comes from Google, in terms of google.com, or youtube.com. So YouTube search or Google search, those, if I drive the traffic there, it's generally about 50% longer, meaning like, a minute versus a minute and a half of total watch time, just for example. And I have that data in another video. So that is the second thing. And then the third thing is going to be, because now that there's more external sources of traffic driven into my channel, this helps with the SEO, which is just search engine optimization. That's YouTube's search algorithm. So if they see more traffic coming in from external sources, they are going to give me more exposure. So if somebody searches for, say, something along the times like keyword associated with this video, instead of being on page 963rd video or a page, you know what I mean, all the way out there, maybe it moves up to 53, and instead of being on page 10, maybe I'm on page 8. So every little bit helps, and then you have this compounding effect, I believe. So we are going to play with that this week, and I'll show you the results. But I did want to show you something very quickly. I went through and I did the numbers out. If I were to, from this point forward, only grow at about 5% per week, which is below 8%, and just this is for the math nerds or anybody who likes the math piece of it, because you have such a steep growth rate in the very beginning of that 72 period, from like the end of March 2018 to the end of October 2018 to the end of March 2020. Because I was able to ramp up so fast over the last 10 weeks or so, even if it did drop down to only 5% growth week over week for the remainder of the 72 weeks, I would still actually hit that goal about 2 months ahead of time. So let me show you that. So this, I just took this right here, which is the week I just finished with. This is the 5% growth rate. And then, whoops. And then if you just come down here, you get to see those the dollar signs right there and there. If you press F4, those come in there, and then that will actually hold. Damn, I keep hitting that thing. That will actually hold this cell right here constant, so that I can go down and calculate it out. Or I could just use an exponent, but I did not because I wanted to see this. So I would hit 250,000 minutes watched by January 25th, 2020, if I was only to grow at 5% from here on forward. However, I don't think that is going to be the case. I think it's going to be growing a lot faster than that going forward. So, with that being said, I am going to show you the analytics on YouTube. I'm going to start with the total number of views. And I'm going to pull up some of the subscriber growth and talk about that briefly, and some of the other things in terms of the total number of views and total number of minutes watched on a per day basis in December versus January, to show some of the results here, because we're only 10 days into the month in January. Okay, so this is what we've got right here, right? So here's the time period, which is the beginning of 2018 to today. It says the 11th of January, however, the data is lagged and I don't have the data for the 11th yet. And as you can see, I have pulled up the number of views and the number of subscribers. So if you look at this, right, I am, this is actually as of the 10th, even though it says the 11th, because the data's not in there, as I just mentioned. So as of right now, I'm around 50%. I'm more than 50%, and I'm not even halfway through the month. So that kind of gives you a perspective of the amount of growth, but you're like, well, you're just over half. So like, it's not that, you know what I mean? It could not be that much. So I went through and actually did the math in terms of the total number of views and the total number of minutes watched per day on average for the month of December, and then for the month of January. I did the same thing with the total number of average subscribers I'm gaining per day. So I'm going to start with the views, and then I'm going to work up to the subscribers. So the total number of views in the per day on average for let me pull it up here. For the month of December versus the month of January, I was at 731 views per day in December on average versus 1,192 on average for January, which is a 63% growth rate. So if this starts to get super nerdy, you could fast forward to the second half of this video and give you even more information of how I'm doing some of these things. The total number of minutes for the month of December on average per day was 1,327 versus 2,500 minutes per day. So that one almost doubled. I had a 90% increase in terms of the average number of minutes per day. And this is, as I mentioned, the 10th. So I still have 21 more days to get that up to, say, 2,800 or 3,000 minutes per day on average. So that's going to be super interesting. Now, total number of subscribers. On average, I was getting about 4 subscribers, 4.06 subscribers per day in the month of December. In the month of January, I'm at 5.08 subscribers per day on average. So that's a 25% growth rate in terms of the average amount per day. So all the numbers are increasing. They're all going in the right direction. I just want to make sure that the minutes, as I showed before, was only 7.5% growth week over week. I just want to make sure that growth rate gets up back around a 40% mark. So I'm going to be testing those things with the social, as I mentioned. Next, I'm going to get into the volume of videos published. This is probably going to blow a lot of you guys away if you're trying to grow your channel. Like, look at this. Do exactly what I'm doing. Whatever it is that you talk about, just do what I'm fucking doing here. And this is tremendous. Like, even if you don't do the marketing in terms of the social yet, you can get into that. But just start putting out tremendous amounts of content. Okay, so take a look at this. What this is the total amount of watch time from October 15th. So this is just basically the last 90 days. October 15th to January 11th, actually the 10th, 81,000. Excuse me. And this is the total number of videos published. So, as you can see, it peaked right here at 137 videos published over the last 30 days. That's tremendous. That's crazy. And then it's been kind of like leveling off, dropping just ever so slightly to about 120-ish, roughly. You know what I mean? So this is, divide that by 30. That's 4 videos per day on average. And let me get rid of that so you get to see. This is the total number of minutes. Like, it works. That's the total number of minutes that people are watching. Like, it works. You can clearly see this is the beginning of a giant S-curve where it starts, you know what I mean? I would like it to continue the growth in there. And we'll just play it out, and I'll keep you guys updated along the path. Another cool, interesting thing is when I have the number of views watched over a 48-hour period, and how I use that data. So what I'll do is I'll pull up the total views over a 48-hour period, and it looks something like this. So it just went over. We're on, 1:13 p.m. on the 13th. So as you can see, over the last 48 hours, we have 2,500 views. And I almost broke 100. I think it was a 94. Yep, 94 views in 1 hour, which is amazing. Because when I started, I got 135 views per day on average. So I think I had 260-ish views, or 270 views over a 48-hour period when I was first starting. And now I've got almost 100 in 1 hour right there. And then this is over the last 60 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll pull it up in terms of the popularity over the last 48 hours. And then I'll go through and see, say, these top 4 or 5 videos, and I'll go through and edit the descriptions on these videos, make sure that they're optimized with how I want them to look, also with the end cards, and also with the cards that come up in the top here. Because all of those are there's going to be a certain percentage of people that click on the end card. There's going to be a certain percentage of people that click on the cards that come up here or here, whatever side it is. So if you see that these are performing well, right? 100 views over the last 48 hours. Not like crazy, but that's not bad. So of those 100, there's going to be some people that click through to the card, right? There's going to be some people that click through the end card. There's going to be some people that click shit in the description. So making sure those are optimized to increase the total number of views as well. I'm going to be diving more into the end cards to see how I can get those to perform better over this coming week. And on next week video, I'll tell you what I'm doing and the results of that. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them down below in the comments, or I have my Instagram in the description. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm happy to help out. If you look at my end cards, not the end cards, the regular cards, by just if you compare that with your audience retention, look at when you have the most amount of audience, and you can stick a lot of the cards right there to help increase the number of click-through on the teaser cards. I haven't started playing with the verbiage on the cards yet, but that might be something I start with this week. If you want to help support the channel, make sure you subscribe, press that bell, and press that thumbs up button. Lastly, if you want to support the channel financially, there's a link for Amazon Associates in the description. Also, I have a series going in terms of how I'm doing that and the results of how much money I'm making from Amazon Associates. Basically, it works is like it just tells Amazon that you clicked on a link of mine, and then it takes a little bit of the profit out of Amazon's coffers for whatever sale that you purchase and gives it to me. Don't go buy shit you don't need, but if you were going to purchase something from Amazon, use my link in the description. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you create an awesome week. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Talk to you soon. Peace.